Hey guys, it's Bo from Reads It, and I read 9 books in September. Okay, overall I feel like I had a really good reading month. Book 1, starting off, Twin Crowns. So this book is 2 sisters, 1 crown. So there's 2 twin sisters. They're raised separately and they're trying to overthrow one sister from the crown versus the other sister from the crown. It is a dual fantasy romance. It is a dual written with authorship, and it really just screams Disney Pixar vibes. It's gorgeous though. Fairy Loot. This is the Fairy Loot edition, and enchanting, delectable, we're here for it. It's just a beautiful cover. The only thing that would make this better is if it was hardback, but this was the additional book inside the Fairy Loot box, so it was a 2-book month, so I can see why it's not hardback. But wow, very nice. Very not floppy at all, like very hard to read. Like, you gotta break spines on this one, but I tried not to. I was like one of those like, oh, yes, It was difficult to read. Indeed, but I'm glad I finished with it. I kind of want to know what happens in book 2. I'm not very convinced about finishing the series, honestly, or continuing the series. I give it like a 3, 4-ish. It's on the cusp, but like overall I pretty much think I give it a 3. It's just not for me. And that was the first book I read this month. Next I read Strange Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This one is a whole cult-like following behind it, and I did give it a 4 stars, but I feel like I didn't connect like everyone else did. I struggled to connect with the characters. This has extraordinary lyrical writing. I'm not going to tell you guys the synopsis because it's very much so something you need to go into blind, I feel like. That's what I was told before I read it, and I feel like the same way. A lot of people love this book, so I feel like if you're into this type of genre, read it just to see if it's one of your faves. But I felt like I couldn't connect to the characters fast enough, and since it's so lyrical at the beginning, I kept getting lost in the lyricy of it. And I feel like during a reread, I can probably offer this a higher rating because I would have fully adapted to the world. But the first few chapters, like I think book 1, it's separated into 4 books. Book 1, very confusing for me. Not confusing, but like very thought active. Book 2, half and half. Book 3, finally like getting the world and the vibes. Book 4, okay, I finally got it and now it's over, you know? So I think a reread is needed. I have Music Dreamer after this. It is a duology, so oh yeah, background, some background like information. I do not and did not like Daughter of Smoking Bone. Read it in college. It is the catalyst that triggered my 10-year reading slump. I hated that book with passion. Not for me at all. Maybe one day I'll reread it and I'll like it more, but it just did not do it for me. This is definitely a solid 4 stars for me, but I feel like I need to do a reread for me to fully immerse. I wasn't immersed when I read it, and I was really sick when I read it. I had a bad fever for like a week, and that's the day I decided to vlog this reading experience. So maybe next time afterwards I will enjoy the experience of reading it, but for now it's a 4-star book for me. Characters extremely lovable. World building phenomenal, extraordinarily so. Very original, never read anything like it. Total, like something new for the palette. So I really like that. It is very slow paced at the beginning, so it doesn't really pick up until like book 2 or book 3-ish within the novel. It ends on a major cliffhanger. The next book, which this is totally one of the books I read because of how beautiful the cover is. The ones we were meant to find. Look at that cover. Isn't it gorgeous? I love this cover. Scrumptious, the art style, the 2 characters on the book. This is a New York Times bestseller, and think Dark Mirror meets sci-fi fantasy survival story. That is this book, and I loved it. I gave it 5 stars because I feel like it's a 5-star for me. I don't think a lot of people would actually like this book. The plot twists, reeling. I feel like if you want to go into this blind, go into it blind, because I think that would be like one of the best experiences to have with it. But wow, I really enjoyed this book. I think if you're a certain type of person, you will like this book. I'm not a big Black Mirror person. I didn't really care for the show, and I think I watched maybe a season of it. Wasn't that invested. But the writing for this book, the twists and turns, the survival aspects. This is a sisterly bond story. This is sci-fi, fantasy, eco, city, apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic. And it was just ravishing. I love this book. I did dual read it on audiobook, so that really helped with the immersion for me, so highly suggest the audiobook as well. And there is a little love story in it that I found was very well done for what it was. If you're into sci-fi and post-apocalyptic YA styled writing, read this. I think it was new, very different story, very original story that I haven't heard before, and I was here for it. 5 stars. Would I reread it? Maybe in a few years, once I forget the story, I would reread it, because I feel like the plot twist is what really gave the story its mysterious oomph for me. But I love the cover. I wish this was a duology and I got a second book and I could figure out what really happened, but it's such a speculative ending, so be emotionally prepared. It's worse than a cliffhanger. It's just the cliff. There is no hanger. Don't expect anything else. By the way, I wrote this note to myself after I finished reading this book so I can tell y'all about it. Please talk to me about The Ones We Are Meant to Find if you have read it. It was so unexpected and refreshingly interesting to read that I would want to chat about it, but I don't think most people would conventionally like it. I love past mode notes, but overall it was very different, but in a good way. You're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. That's how I feel. A very good book for book clubs because the discussions around the whole world and universe would be captivatingly interesting. Oh, yes. Definitely for fans of Scott Westerfield, the Uglies type vibes. I was getting those vibes. Like, the books are very different, don't get me wrong, but the vibes were very there for me. So if you're into this very old, by the way, side story. Scott Westerfield's Uglies was my first YA novel. I received it as a birthday gift years ago. I don't even remember which birthday it was, but that book opened the world of YA for me and I could not stop. I drank it up. And guess what? There's like new novellas, side stories, spin-off series for the Uglies world. There's the Youngbloods and like another, I think it's called The Imposters. I need to check them out because I love that series way back when in YA Mo days. So I would love to reread it, and I would love to read the new spin-off universes, because if you were into those old YA sci-fi novels, you understand me. All the Scott Westerfield books back then, but Uglies is the only one I still remember. Check the trigger warnings on this one, and it is a slow-paced sci-fi and it is dual POV'd. Thank you, Passmo, for writing this note to me because I would have forgotten. P.S. You will not like this book if you are not invested in the characters and the mystery. Passmo has spoken. 5 stars for that one. Another 5-star novel. I had a good month for 5 stars so far. Sky in the Deep by Adrienne Young. For those who don't know, Adrienne Young wrote Fable and Namesake. I gave both of these books 4 stars, I believe. One of them maybe 3, 4, and they were really good, but I think Adrienne Young's writing shines through in Sky in the Deep. This was one of the books that the bookstore associate recommended to me, and it's not even a latest book haul because we've had way many ever since, but my July book haul, the one that's called Another Book Haul or something, she recommended this book to me, and I'm so grateful that she did. This book is amazing. I love it. It was 5 stars. It is a fantasy romance. It deals with clansmen. It is a forced proximity. It has sibling bonds in it. And it was just lovely, and I just really enjoyed it. Do I think everyone will love it? I think more people would like this one than The Ones We Were Meant to Find because it has more traditional storytelling, but done in a different way. Part Wonder Woman, part Vikings, all heart. So raised to be a warrior, 17-year-old Elin fights along her Aska clansmen in the ancient rivalry against the Reiki clan. Her life is brutal but simple. Fight and survive until the day she sees the impossible. Her brother, her dead brother, fighting on the battlefield and fighting with the enemy. The brother she watched die 5 years ago. Faced with her brother's betrayal, she must survive the winter in the mountains with the Reiki, her rival clan, in a village where everyone is her enemy, and every battle scar one that she possibly gave. I did not know this. This is her debut novel. This is an amazing debut novel, and I can really see how she has diversified herself as an author, because if you read Fable and Namesake, I feel like it's nothing like this, but it's still amazing. And I really want to read, I believe there's Sky in the Deep, but there's another one, I think it's Girl in the Sea or something, and it's not the same book, but it has like the same world, I think. So I'm really excited to read that one next. But 5 stars, I really enjoyed it. She is a different type of heroine and I love it. The world building is interesting and intriguing. And if you like Vikings, I think you'll like this. I think this is one of my first Viking novels of this year. Yeah, I don't think I've read any Vikings this year. I've been very fae, very circus, very supernatural, so I haven't had any Vikings, surprisingly. Next, I finally did it. I finished Finale. I gave it like 4 stars. I still am not invested in the characters as enough as I think I should be. I know a lot of people love the Carvel world and the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, but I do love Jax. He's like my favorite character. He really carried this novel, I feel like. But I'm not as interested in Stella and Donatella and the whole gang and Dante and Julian and all of them. So Finale is the 3rd book and the final book in the Caravel series. I've read the Caravel series. I think I gave all the books 4 stars. And I really wanted to love the series as much as I feel like the hype has brought it to, but I did not. I was not as deeply invested as I feel like I needed to be. And I understand it, and I feel like YA Mo would have given this 5 stars. But I feel like me having read YA for so many years and now being more in like the adult genre, but still reading YA and adult here and there, I like it, but it's not a 5-star book for me. I wish this came out in my YA days so I could have truly appreciated it for what it is. I still love it. I still want to read Once Upon a Broken Heart because Jax, and I feel like this is gonna have like the Cassandra Clare redemption story. Like, we all loved, well, we can't say we all, me, I loved the Mortal Instruments trilogy, the original trilogy, way back when in the YA days. I absolutely gave those books 5 stars. Me now, those are 3-star books, sometimes 2. And they did the work. They did the reasoning, they created the world and the potential ability of Infernal Devices, which is my favorite series, holding Clockwork Princess, my favorite book ever in that trilogy. So I feel like the spin-off series from the original Caravel trilogy is going to have that same type of momentum and oomph, and we're gonna get amazing characters and addictive reading in future series. This is just a prediction, but I think that's what's gonna happen, and I really hope. The world is so vast in here. It's so original, it's so different, and I love it. I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see where Stephanie Garber goes as an author, because her writing, lovely, flourishing. She has very blooming, imaginary writing, and it's very distinct and it's very lovely. What falls flat for me typically is my immersion into the plot, me believing that my characters are not gonna figure out a way out of it. I feel like I need higher stakes, and I feel like I'm not as invested in the characters as I should be. I feel like Jax is the most invested I've been in a Stephanie Garber character, and I need more. We need more. I want more. I want like 1,000 different versions of characters like that. Deeply immersive, dimensional, interesting. different. He was kooky could do interesting, that's for sure. And different types of plots, like them playing this whole Caravel game, that's cool and all, but it kind of gets old after 3 books, you know? I don't want them to be playing the games. I don't want them to be doing heists either. I want a different type of plot point from her. And I feel like she will thrive. Are these books different? Yes. Is the world building amazing and immersive? Yes. But I feel like it's just not my type of different yet. When she expands her plots and her characters, she's going to go very far, because her writing, chef's kiss. She has such lovely writing. Very different. I would love to see her talk one day because of how she thinks and her thoughts and how they transcend into words into her writing, because it's different, it's nice, it's new, and it's very elegant. Extraordinarily elegant. So I will be continuing this series and going on to Once Upon a Broken Heart. I have heard that it isn't as good, but I'm hoping I have a different experience, and everything is subjective. Everything. But I feel like since the series, in theory, are going to get better and better and better, as I go, I will be continuing to follow her work because her writing is exquisite. Next, I finally did it. I finished These Twisted Bonds, which is the final duology part of These Hollow Vows. Gave that one 5 stars in February when I first read it when I was really sick, and I listened to it mostly on Audible. Then I did a reread, I think it was last month, and I gave it 3 stars because it was just better the first time, and I feel like without the mystery angst, I wasn't as invested in it, and the characters were getting annoying and falling flat and being shallow in my opinion. So I didn't really like it the first time round, the second time round, and then this one. Finally finished it, the duology. I finally know what happened in the story, and it fell flat for me. I really feel like this one regressed into the 3/4 category of stars for me. We're just gonna give it 4 stars to like have something to put in the book, but like it didn't do it for me. You know, we're just gonna give it 3 stars. I just feel like the writing got really jumbled up in this one. I feel like the storytelling was really slow and agonizingly slow. And I feel like we could have just compressed this whole book into like maybe 300 pages. It was definitely giving the whole fanfic trope to me, honestly. These Twisted Bonds is about Brie. She is a orphan doing like the Cinderella-esque story with her aunt, and her little sister gets taken or actually sold to the evil Fae King. Brie hates Fae, but she ends up on this journey and this kind of love triangle-esque thing with a prince of Fae and another prince of Fae, and it's just crazy. And that is the summary for These Twisted Bonds. I feel like this was a month of finishing series or duologies. I finished this duology, The Six Crimson Crane by Elizabeth Lim. I loved it. It was one of my favorite books I read this year. It's a 5-star book for me. It's more like a 4-star book in like reality, but it's a 5-star book for my heart. The originality of the story, it was just so compelling and lovely. This book is about Shiri. She is the princess of Katia, and she has a secret. Forbidden magic runs in her veins. In her world, magic is evil and it should not be happening. The morning of her betrothal ceremony, she accidentally loses control of it and forestalls the wedding that she technically didn't really want anyway. And she accidentally catches the attention of her mom, stepmom, Reikama, and turns out her stepmom is a sorceress, an evil sorceress at that, and she transforms her brothers into 6 crimson cranes. Shori cannot speak about it to anyone, or for every word that escapes her lips, one of her brothers will die. And penniless, voiceless, and alone, she has to search for her brothers and uncover a dark conspiracy to seize the throne. And only she can set the kingdoms to right, but she must place her trust in a paper bird, a mercurial dragon, and the very boy she fought so hard not to marry. And she must embrace her magic. It's so cute. It's coming of age. It's coming of age. I believe it's retelling or folklore inspired. It has family bonds, interesting storytelling premises, and it's just different. I hadn't read anything like it before. It's a total side piece romance though, which is so disappointing. If they had umped the romance up a bit more, I would have loved it, but it was definitely a side plot, and I do not like that. I wish every book was a dual fantasy romance, equal fantasy, equal romance, equal plot, equal romance plot. But no, we have to have side plots, which is just annoying. But if you love subplot romance, you will love every single side piece romance I have probably ever mentioned, because I don't like side piece romance. I like it to be equal, dual with the fantasy plot. But anyway, I loved the first book, 5 stars for me, and the second book, I think it's a 4-star for me. I did not expect the ending whatsoever, at all, period. And I feel like I really liked it, but I feel like I wanted more overall. So I give it like 4 stars, I believe. I feel like the conclusion just could have been more epic, even though it was still pretty epic, but it wasn't epic enough for me. And I think that's what really bothered me about that. Other than that, it was amazing. By the way, this is also one of my favorite covers. I love this cover. So lovely. For those who read Six Crimson Cranes, have you finished the duology? Did it hit as hard as the first book did for you? Because I feel like it just didn't hit as hard as the first book. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. Next, I have Violet Made of Thorns. This was my Fairyloot edition of Violet Made of Thorns. It's really lovely. It has a ribbon. I love that. I think this is my first Fairyloot book with a ribbon. We have ombre sprayed edges, and of course, character art. And I feel like our hardback is very enchanting and lovely. It's like that all around. So Violet is a prophet and a liar. She influences the royal court with her cleverly phased and not always true divinations, but honesty is her suckers, and like the oh-so-not charming Prince Cyrus, who plans to strip Violet of her official role once he is crowned at the end of summer, unless Violet does something about it. This is a darkly enchanting fantasy debut about a morally gray witch, a cursed prince, and a prophecy that ignites their fate. Twisted destiny is perfect for the fans of Cruel Prince and Serpent and Dove. I have read Cruel Prince, and I do not feel like it is an accurate representation for this book to be compared to. Just gonna put that out there. Does not live up to the hype of Cruel Prince. Does not have the vibes of Cruel Prince. Like, I feel like these are two different types of heroines. Like, I feel like they're trying to compare Violet to Jude, but the comparison really isn't there for me. Even though Violet is a liar and she cheats her way through the throne and she does everything she can for her own purposes, it lacks the grit of Jude, the cruel parts of Jude, the resilience and the hardcore badassery of her. So no, Violet is not Jude, and Prince Cyrus is most definitely not a Cardigan, and there is no fairies in this, so the vibes aren't hitting. This is literally a fantasy book about a witch and a prince and a world that has magical... Oh, there is magical fairies in it, but they're not like your typical fairies. Think drunk Tinkerbell. That's what they remind me of. So yeah, no. So I do not agree with that representation. I still have not read Serpent and Dove. I'm excited to. I've heard mixed reviews. I don't know where I feel about it, so I don't know the synopsis for that book. So I'm not sure how it relates to Serpent and Dove, but just heads up, if you're gonna read that, read this. I do not think it lives up to the Cruel Prince hype. What a bad example. I liked it. I gave it 4 stars. I felt like the story was cool and all, but it wasn't as engaging as I feel like it could have been. And yeah, I don't really have major outlying thoughts about it at all. It was definitely like a YA novel. Next is Lore of Olympus. I heard a lot of you guys love this book, so I had to pick it up and check it out. It is my first comic book, animated book, I don't know. It has like comic styles. So I read it in like an hour, 30 minutes, something like that. This is a Hades and Persephone retelling. It is a fantasy romance. It is supposed to be a really famous hyped up novel but honestly I did not get the hype. I felt like the story ended really fast in this, and I felt like there wasn't enough information in the book for me to, I felt like the book began and then ended in the same chapter, and that was the last chapter. So yeah, I felt like I read chapter 1 of a book and that's all I really got in this entire novel. So I really want to find out what happens in book 2 or volume 2 or whatever it is, but honestly I will probably not buy the physical copy. I will probably just read the webtoon version if that's available. But overall it was cutesy bootsy. I thought it was cool, but needs more chemistry, more backstory, more everything. Okay, now looking back at it, I don't think I read this page. Nope. Nope. Did I skip a whole chapter in this thing? I think I skipped 3 pages on accident, but overall did not further the story, but still. I want more, need more. We'll see what happens, how I feel after book 2, because it's not enough for me to judge a book, you know? September, 9 books in September. Please do not judge your reading stats to mine. I was sick in September, so I had some downtime. I had a really bad fever for like a week and a half. So I was either reading a lot during the fever or I wasn't reading at all. So yeah. Perspective is always good. As long as you enjoy the active reading, enjoy the numbers that you get from it. And that's all, folks. Be sure to subscribe. Remember, I'm here every Friday and I am on Book Talk, Bookstagram, and here naturally on YouTube. Happy reading, y'all. Bye.